Hi, I'm Monty McDivitt. I'm the president of Niguel Botanical Preserve. You're at our front entrance right above the grass amphitheater in Crown Valley Park. Niguel Botanical Preserve is a Mediterranean climate garden. We actually have plants from the 5 Mediterranean regions of the world, around the Mediterranean Sea, coastal California, coastal Chile, the West Cape of South Africa, and South and Southwestern Australia around Perth. All these areas of the planet have temperate climates and a lot in common. They face western seas and they actually have very temperate climates where it's never too hot and it's never really freezes. But they all get very moderate rainfall. So most of the plants grown in these areas are drought tolerant. We have 12 entrances across the top of the grass amphitheater and above the grasslands of Crown Valley Park. So if you come into Crown Valley Park and park in the same parking lot as the city pool and the YMCA, we share the same parking lot as them. And we have 12 entrances across the top. And every entrance actually has a greeting and our website and the actual rules when you enter the park. One rule that I do want to emphasize is to stay on our trails for your own safety, as well as the safety of our plants. This is a nature area. We actually have some rattlesnakes in here, and we want to keep everyone safe. Also, we actually sow seeds, and we actually have lots of poppies and wildflowers popping up. And if they're heavily trafficked on by foot, they won't survive. So please stay on our trails. You're in our front meadow area right now, and you're seeing our Chasmanthi Grandiflora, or actually Chasmanthi floribunda, pop up. This is a South African bulb, and it comes up every spring. So it starts sprouting its leaves in early winter, and by this time in the springtime, in mid-March, it is in full bloom, and it will die back to the ground starting in May. And that will give the opportunity for another plant to succeed it. During the summer, you'll see a lot of Russian sage coming up, and this will all be a big bed of purple. But in the background, you see one of our new bridges that we just installed about a year ago with a big fundraiser that we had. And in that little meadow in front of it, you have some daffodils popping up right now. If you follow me on around, we actually have this curved staircase that will be going up, and we can actually get a closer look at the meadow. So if you actually come up to our gardens and you actually have one of our maps, this is an area that's colored in teal. That means we have all 5 sections of the Mediterranean climates around the world in this garden. We have plants from Chile, we have plants from the Mediterranean basin, we have plants from Australia, and we actually have plants from South Africa as well. The daffodils that you see are actually from the Mediterranean basin, and this is a really interesting sage. This is called a hummingbird sage. It's the only red sage that's out there. It's California native, and of course hummingbirds love it. Standing right next to one of our 3 cork oaks here in the Botanical Preserve. Cork oaks are actually endemic to the Iberian Peninsula, which is in Europe, made up of the countries of Spain and Portugal. Now, they can live up to 250 years, and they are farmed in the Iberian Peninsula by the farmers coming and peeling back the bark, and that's hauled away to make actual cork. And that's where all cork comes from, including wine corks and cork floors. They actually are made from the cork or the bark of this cork oak. For the next 10 to 15 years after it's harvested, it will grow back, and the farmer will come back and harvest it again. So that is the life of a cork oak and why they're so beneficial to the world. Here we are in front of another fun tree. This is a brachychiton. The common name is a bottle tree for the shape of the trunk. Now, unlike other trees that store their water in the root system, this one actually stores most of it in its trunk. As you can see, it actually has split where it's swollen with winter rains, and it'll actually shrink during the summertime. Not dramatically, and you probably couldn't tell by the naked eye, but it actually does shrink. These are actually endemic to Australia, but they are actually grown in South Africa in the same temperate climate. And elephants know there's water here, so they'll come up and tear open the bark with their tusks to harvest water if they're not near a water hole. That's why this is so beneficial in the wild. A lot of wildlife uses it for the water source that it contains. Here we are at the top of the hill at the entrance of Citizen of the Year Grove. And this is dedicated to all the citizens of the year here in Laguna Niguel. Basically, it's a volunteer that's chosen every year for their volunteer efforts, not only for the previous year, but all the years before that. So we have a whole grove of about 30 years worth of citizens of the year. Every citizen has a plaque and a tree behind it. These are crepe myrtles, not currently in bloom, but this summer they'll be flush with white blooms. And as you walk up this curved walkway, you can actually see all the plaques and all the previous citizens of the year, and you're met at the very top by a big surprise. Okay, we're at the top of the Citizen of the Year walk, and it is actually a curved walkway, and it's a very important part of garden design. One thing you want to do when you're designing a garden is actually to have a big reveal at the end of a curve or at the end of a tight entrance, and here you have both. So as you pan around, you actually see we actually have a big labyrinth here that was installed around 2009, and it's on point with Saddleback Mountains. You cannot see Saddleback Mountains today because it's actually covered in clouds, but it's a great view of the peaks of Saddleback. So again, we're at the top of the Botanical Preserve right now, adjacent to the labyrinth, and here we're in gazebo green. So we actually, this is actually a gazebo, but the type of gazebo is called a garden temple. It has nothing to do with religion. It is a neoclassical style of gazebo that's very popular in Greek and Roman architecture, and actually used by one of our presidents, James Madison. It's on his grounds at Montpelier in Virginia. That's the emblem for his presidential palace. We hope to actually use this one day for functions or perhaps weddings, but we are waiting for the city to approve that, and one day we hope to have some small functions up here, and it will be available for rent. On the other side of the labyrinth is actually our small formal garden. You're met by two rectangles here, and these are called Parterre Gardens. Parterre Gardens are defined as a hedge around the perimeter with the plant inside. So actually, if we pan over here, we actually have rosemary as our bush perimeter, and then lavender growing up in the middle. And it's very happy today with bees. We actually have a formal statue here. It's called Rebecca at the Well, donated by one of our members. And this is probably our most formal area of the preserve, because we are more of a nature preserve than botanical garden, and for that reason we call this area the formal garden. You're standing at the actual entrance of our Chilean garden, and you'll be greeted by this circle filled with Ostromeria. And if you pan to the left and the right, you'll see this great succulent that you'll see around town in our meetings up and down Crown Valley. This is called Chasmanthi Grandiflora. It's very easy to grow, tons of blooms, and I think it'd be a great addition to your garden. You can find these plants at Plant Depot and Home Depot. They're very common to buy. But this is one of the biggest Chilean Mediterranean climate gardens in the northern hemisphere. You'll find other bigger Chilean gardens around, like San Francisco Chilean garden, but they actually have more tropical plants and not as many Mediterranean plants as we do. So I encourage you to come here, take a look at the Mediterranean climate garden from Chile, and see what would work well in your yard. So one of the things about Niguel Botanical Preserve, we do have a lot of hills. We're on the top flat road that's most popular with our walkers, and there's an actual loop around the whole preserve if you include this road at the very top. But we're standing at the top of Palm Canyon here. We planted the Palm Canyon to illustrate how you can still have a very tropical, lush look with drought-tolerant plants. One of the plants that's in bloom right now is this Leucospermum, or spider flower, and it has brilliant orange blooms, and it's part of the Protea family. So it's very drought-tolerant, but the only thing about a lot of these plants is this guy likes to have his roots dry. So we plant him on a hillside and actually bury a drainage channel down through the hill so his roots are never soaking in water. All right, we're near the top of the preserve, and across the top we actually have our California native garden. And this was developed by Peter Evans in 2010 and laid out in 2011. And it's filled with a lot of course, California color. We actually have this great verbena that blooms purple, and it's a great plant to have in your garden, so easy to maintain. When it starts looking a little ratty, and this one's still pretty fresh, but once it starts getting ratty, you just cut it back to about 6 inches and it grows right back and flushes itself again with color. So you can have color with this plant all year long. Another popular California native is our Cmnotis, or California lilac. This is a California native, and the local indigenous people would take this bloom and wet their hands and actually use it for soap, and it would actually disinfect their hands. So in the springtime they would actually use this for antiseptic and to cleanse their hands, and they would use a lot of these native plants around for medicinal purposes. This again, California lilac, or Cmnotis. I want to tell you a little bit about this little guy right here. He's going to grow to about 3 feet tall this summer, but this is actually called milkweed, and it's a California native. It's called thin leaf milkweed, and it's our native plant for monarch butterflies to lay their eggs on. Now they'll eat from the verbena plant, even the Cmnotis plant, and all these native blooms, but they only lay their eggs on this little guy. And they lay little tiny eggs, and they sprout into larvae, and the larvae will eat the leaves on the milkweed, then crawl away to crystallize and become an adult butterfly. So without blooms and native milkweed to lay their eggs on, we're going to see a continued decline in our monarch butterfly population. So please plant more blooms and milkweed in your garden. One thing that's unique about Niguel Botanical Preserve is we actually have certain sections dedicated to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. This is the Boy Scout section. It's called Trail to Eagle, and it was actually developed by Dennis Mulvaney, Scout leader and our Scout liaison. Unfortunately, Mr. Mulvaney just passed away last week, but he's dedicated 30 years of his life to developing this garden and this trail that actually has a lot of Eagle Scout projects in it, where Eagle Scouts can get their merit badges, and he creates all kinds of patches for Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts to get their patches through garden work. Come on in, let me show you around. All of these statues have a significant in Boy Scout culture. We're starting with our Cub Scout tiger, and we have our tiger statue. What is very popular, of course, is this wolf, and the wolf trail. And we actually have lots of kids that want to come up and get their picture taken with the wolf as well. Finally, we have the bear trail with our big grizzly bear up here. And as you can see, we have a hard time getting anything to grow around the statues because we have lots of enthusiastic Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts that want to get their picture taken with these statues. And finally, the Weblow's badge is this arrow with the sun coming up over the arrow. It does have a significance in Boy Scout culture. I'm not sure what it is, but come out and check out the Trail to Eagle. It's your Boy Scout will be enthused to be here. We're currently at our most northern entrance to the Niguel Botanical Preserve. It's the actual Girl Scout tree grove. And as we enter on up, you're greeted by this series of tiles up on the hillside. These are called Wag's flags, and It actually stands for World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. So everywhere, every country that has either Girl Scouts or Girl Guides, that country is represented up here on the hill. And it's a very, again, popular area for children to come find either their native country or a country that they visited. And it's a very well photographed area of the preserve. But this whole canyon is lined with jacaranda trees. And these jacaranda trees are actually the city tree of Laguna Niguel. And they have the brilliant purple blooms and blossoms that jacaranda trees have. Down below, the understory is Society garlic. It has a brilliant purple bloom as well. And there's more purple blooms as you go up the canyon. So please visit back here. Probably the peak bloom time for this area is probably going to be May, June. So please come back to Niguel Botanical Preserve. There's always a section that's in bloom. There's always something to see. And it's a great way to spend times with family and friends. All right, we're right above the grass amphitheater here in Crown Valley Park, near one of our entrances to Niguel Botanical Preserve. We actually lost 2 big sycamores here about 5 years ago, and it dramatically changed the garden. So it became from a shaded garden to a very sunny garden. So we took that opportunity to redevelop the whole garden. One of our major questions from the city citizens actually coming to our concerts in the summer, why there wasn't more summer color. Well, as I've explained to you already, Mediterranean climate gardens usually don't have that much color in the summer, but there are a few plants that do bloom. So we decided to group all those plants here next to our summer concert amphitheater, and we actually have lots of color here in the summertime. We have Mexican sage right here that blooms a brilliant purple. We actually have Jerusalem sage that's blooming right now in yellow, and we actually have a purple Jerusalem sage that's going to start blooming here behind me. The tree right behind me is actually called a Vitex tree. It's from Europe, and it's part of the Mediterranean climate there. And it blooms this brilliant lavender, big spiky bloom in the summertime. It's very showy, and it's a great centerpiece for your garden. So come back during the summertime. This will be all filled with color for our summer concert goers. And again, welcome to Niguel Botanical Preserve.